All right. Welcome everyone back to another edition of the Broker to Broker podcast. I'm your host, Marc Summers, founding president of AIME. Today, we have one of our VIP members here going to share her story, kind of what she's doing. She closes a good amount of loans, very, very impressive. But she's going to tell us her story, how she goes about getting her business, talk about AIME itself, being a VIP member. So today I'm very, very happy to have Holly Niemeier here, a mortgage loan originator with Nexa. Holly, thanks for joining us today.
Fine. Happy to be here.
Good deal. Good deal. Okay. So when we did our little pre-show thing, we were talking about how what we want to talk about, what's important to the broker community. But I know you have an interesting background and history of getting into this business because I know you've been in it for over 20 years. Why don't you walk us through like from step one or even a little bit before about how you got started in this business and your story?
Yeah, so I got started about 21 years ago, out of college, dropped out of college, had friends doing mortgages, making a lot of money. And I thought, why am I in school? Let's get into this business. So I started in the subprime US bank for a couple years, got out of the business in 2008 and got back in about 11 years ago. In between there, I toured with rock bands. So I completely just got out of the business. I was
you toured with a rock band?
Yeah, so I toured with Bon Jovi. I moved to LA, worked on TV, movies, lived in a bus for a couple years. So kind of a little bit of a crazy story, but after 2008 hit, I got into the music business like 2010 or so. So what happened was I just was, one of my first friends with a career making, really good money, working around the clock. 2008 came, got out of the business, trying to figure out what I was doing, bartending, just doing side jobs. Moved to LA, just thought, I don't want any responsibility. Ended up on a tour bus. So that was kind of fun. But after a while, you're living on a bus, ending up in different cities every day. And I just wanted some stability. And so I wanted to get back into mortgages because I was good at it. It was good money. I had enough fun, for a couple of years doing random things. So when I came back into the business, I started back with Caliber Home Loans. So I was at Caliber about 10 years. And I was an assistant to a high producing loan officer. So basically doing everything for them. I was, they brought the loan in and then everything was up to me. So I did everything start to finish. It was March 31st, 2023. I was at an RV show. Me and my daughter love to camp. So we were looking at buying a new RV and I get a call from our RVP. Can you hop on Teams? And I was like, well, can I just have a call with you? He's like, can you get on video? And I was like, oh, 31st, end of the month. Nobody's left in my branch. So I got laid off. So I was the only person left. Every person had left, either went to another retail shop or into the broker world. Got laid off and no longer were we going to be buying a new RV that day. And so a friend of mine, Kelly, had said, hey, come over here. I'm at Nexa. I don't know what Nexa is, but I'll move my license, right? So didn't have any idea. I knew it was the broker world, but I figured, I'll check it out, right? So moved my license and just sat there. Didn't do anything for about 6 months. I debated getting out of the business. I did a couple side jobs for friends that had companies and really just sat there kind of contemplating my life as a lot of people do. And then Kelly calls me and says, I've got all these investors calling me and I need help. And I'm like, okay, so what do you need help with? And she's like, they're trying to do DSCR loans and I'm just overwhelmed. I'm gonna have them start calling you. And I was like, first of all, I need to know what a DSCR loan is. So I just kind of dove head first. I didn't know, I had done like one DSCR loan at Caliber. So I jumped in head first and I spent my nights studying guidelines. I asked her a million questions. I'm calling the A's. I have no idea. I've got people calling me and I don't even know what I'm doing. So I just decided to lean in and make it my niche, become an expert. So around the clock, that's all I did is study, really understand what investors needed, how the loans worked, how to structure them. And then from there, kind of develop my own business out of it. And so we got those leads for a few months and then the leads went away. But I built my business basically off of developing relationships with the investors that had come to me and their agents to get additional business. And so that's kind of how I started at Nexa. I didn't do any loans for 6 months while I was at Nexa and then went to like 20 plus loans a month.
Wow.
But there's a few, so it just kind of went, it just kind of, came out of nowhere.
Snowballed for it. Kind of snowballed.
Yeah, snowballed, yeah.
So So I know you're heavy on DSCR, and we're going to hop into that here in a few moments. But obviously, you were retail for probably a good portion. I mean, not probably, you were a good portion of your business. What's the one difference that you like, or why would you promote the broker world since you're out of the retail side now and back into the broker world? Like, what's one thing that you would urge people to understand about the broker world?
Oh gosh, everything. My biggest regret is nobody telling me, sooner to go into the broker world. The biggest thing I think is just the products, having the so many lenders, so many different types of products, especially with my niche. Like in the retail world, most can't even do DSCR. They got a couple products. For investors, fix and flip options. You're not doing hard money loans at a retail company. The DSCR options, if I want to do an SBA loan, if I want to do a commercial loan, apartment building, a grocery, land, anything, just the products. There's just so much flexibility. And just, I look back at retail and all the middle management, just the spread, making so much money. And our rates were not nearly as good as broker. And I like how it's just very transparent in the broker world. You close, I know exactly what I'm getting paid. I know exactly where the money is going on the purchase advice. And just knowing that there's no, money coming out in between is just, wow. It's like all the money that got paid to all the middle management that could have been in our pockets or could have helped our borrowers. So I think those are the two biggest things is just product availability, lenders to work with, and just the rates are better.
Well, talk to me about real quick about like, obviously you go over to Nexa, great company, and then you're basically running your own business. Was that scary, or did you kind of feel it freeing and like, oh, I can really grasp onto this and move my business forward?
At first, it was a little scary because I didn't know anything about the broker world. And I'm like, oh, I got to find my own processor. At Caliber, I walked into an office and it's like, here's your processor. The underwriters are down the hall. Everything was just kind of there, right? You didn't have options. You couldn't choose who was pulling your credit. You click the button and it pulled credit. So for me, just learning all that it was a bit of a learning curve to figure out, okay, I got to go find a processor, got to interview him, decide who I can use anyone I want. What credit, what credit company am I going to use? What lender am I going to use? So once I kind of dialed that in, now I love it. It was definitely a transition, several month transition, just trying to understand the broker world, just grasp it as a whole. Cause I think you have so many lenders, so many opportunities, so many choices, which is great, but it can be overwhelming at first to figure out what direction to go and how do I kind of figure out where I come into play and who I need to use, and how do I find those resources.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so you get these leads basically, and you don't know anything about DSCR, or maybe you have a small grasp of it. Okay, how did you? Because the numbers you threw out to me were pretty amazing. Like, did you just read guidelines? Did you take classes? Like, how did you learn so much about DSCR?
I laid in bed at night. I started with UWM, laid in bed at night and I read all the colors. I literally just studied them, read them. A couple different lenders that I knew people were using. I'm just literally, when I say reading the guidelines, I mean, I sat there and I read through them every night for hours in bed. And then I would call the AEs, ask a million questions. Okay, here's my scenario. What can you do? And the biggest thing was I did a lot of under $100,000 loan amounts. So finding lenders that do those was the hard part, and UWM does. And then I kind of branched out to a couple different ones. And once I got, like a handful, about 5 lenders, is just really studied everything about asking questions to anybody that knew that had done them. Really just leaning on the AEs and leaning on the guidelines. And then when we put a loan in, the underwriters, I would just call them and ask them a million questions. Hey, what about this? What about that? I'm seeing this. Is this normal for, And then I started realizing like, okay, these are standard conditions, but I'm getting all these other conditions. So really just started fighting against things, questioning things, and underwriters started removing conditions because a lot of them were unnecessary. So when I first started, there was a lot of just, it was a lot, a lot of the lenders were newer in the DSCR space. And there would just be unnecessary things. And, my brain's going, this doesn't make sense. Why would we need this? And it wasn't needed. A lot of them were underwriting like it was conventional or, agency, but this is not agency. And so I also, another thing that I really did is I just went to the lend. I saw some lenders saying, okay, minimum deposit of this. Other ones are asking for crazy things. So I took kind of all the lenders, everything that was asked for, the lenders that were asking for the least amount of stuff, I went against the other lenders and said, hey, nobody else is asking for this stuff, and challenged them. And I saw, almost single-handedly worked with the executives at UWM to change all the DSCR guidelines. Almost all the changes have come from my initial email reaching out saying, hey, here's a laundry list of things that no other lenders are asking for. If you guys want to get more business, these changes are going to be necessary. And they've changed everything. Come a long way. Started without doing, LLCs. You had to be licensed in the state. All that stuff has changed. So that was, I just kind of became an expert, put all my energy into just understanding and learning everything about DSCR.
What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone listening to the show and they're like, because I know there's some people in my area that are closing like 300 loans a year on DSCR. What's one piece of advice you would give them in going to try to find those investors, like trying to find people who fit that DSCR model?
So I think the first thing is knowing what you're talking about, because I know when I'm not familiar with a type of loan, I don't attract those people, and I kind of like, I hope they don't call me back, because you just don't know what you're doing. So I would say the first thing is become an expert, really learn everything about it. So when you do talk to investors, you are confident, and then you'll just naturally attract them if you know what you're talking about, because there's so many agents that don't know what DSCR is. So if you can educate them, and also investors, if you know what you're talking about, they're more likely to go with you. As far as finding business, like there's tons of ways to find investors. Find the agents that are working in those areas where it's highly, a lot of rentals. Reach out to the agents, start talking to them. Find investor groups online. The cool thing about investor clients is they always buy more than one property, mostly. So, once you get a couple good ones, you find people that are, they buy multiple properties, and then you see the agents they're working with and ask, hey, I've got this program that doesn't require income. Do you know any investors? And they all know somebody. I mean, every time I ask for business, they all know somebody. So really, I think it's just leaning in on and understanding the program, and then where are investors at? And investors are buying in, a lot of the Section 8 areas, inner cities. Start with those places. Go join every group online, investment groups. There's tons of investment groups in different cities. And just figure out where you want to be, and just start putting yourself out there and just start asking for business, and know what you're talking about. You're talking about the people who are going to trust you, because there's plenty of people that, I get business from people all the time that talk to loan officers and they're like, oh, we can't do under 100,000, or that doesn't exist, or, they don't even know. And so as soon as you even know just a little bit, you put yourself ahead, because there's a lot of people that have no clue about DSCR. They're just kind of afraid of it.
So if it's kind of a little bit of a role playing here. If I was quote unquote an investor, right? I'm the client, like, and you make that call to me, like what's that call like? Like what makes you stick out?
Yep. So I take the time to just educate. I mean, I'm trying to figure out, I'm educating them, and I'm also figuring out their goals. So client calls me, what are you looking to do? How many properties do you own? Are you trying to scale? Do you want to buy one property a month, 100 in the next year? What's your model? Where's your money coming from? Are you doing cash out refinances to get additional money? Do you have funds? I ask them a whole bunch of questions. I really just want to learn everything about their business, what they're trying to do, what their goals are, because that's going to tell me what products we can do, what loans we can do, and kind of help them scale. I ask them if they're doing rehab, are these going to be turnkey houses? If they need a rehab, hey, let's do a hard money loan. If they're trying to buy a whole bunch of properties, I give them the options of here's a blanket option. If you're going to buy a bunch from one investor, or you want to buy a bunch with cash, put them into a blanket loan to lower all your costs. That's an option. If we get into a property and need rehab, hey, guess what? I have a solution. We can flip it to a fix and flip loan, and then you can hold it. And so what I really do is just ask them, let them talk. How's your business set up? Who are your partners? Do you have construction on foot? Do you already have project managers that are property managers on foot? What all do you have in place? Some of them come to me experiments, other ones I'm kind of helping guide them along. What does financing look like for what you're trying to do? And so I spend about 30 minutes up front with investors, and every kind of year I reconnect with them. Hey, what are your new goals? And just really just strategize on, hey, what's the best way to get you your goals by spending the least amount of money? If they have capital, I'll suggest, why don't you pay cash out, do delayed financing? If they've got millions in the bank, let's do it a different way. So really just taking that time to strategize, listen to them, because the feedback I get is, wow, nobody's ever asked me these questions. They just say, oh, here's the rate, here's your payment. And they just automatically assume the person wants a specific loan. But that doesn't always work. You got to look at prepayment penalties, really get specific on how long are you keeping the loan? What's your strategy? And so I think that's what sets me apart. And I educate them on the different loan types, what DSCR is if they don't know, how fix and flip loans work, what are the benefits to each one, so then they can make a decision based on my input, so they feel comfortable in what they're doing.
That's awesome. What's so talking about DSCR here, what's one thing that you go, wow, this is really cool that DSCR does? Now everyone knows, pretty much no income and all that good stuff. But what's one aha or tidbit that you could give someone and go, or we'll just say it this way. Did you know on DSCR?
What I didn't know, or what investors don't know?
Or what's something that someone listening would be like, I never knew you could do that on DSCR.
Oh, wow. You can put multiple loans into multiple properties into one loan, doing a blanket loan, which you have one underwriting fee, one processing fee, one set of title fees. That saves people. But a lot of it is you can close in an LLC. Some allow layered LLCs. I'm trying to think of some of the other just different things that people don't realize. Not every lender's different, but a lot of them just have no idea. Most of them don't report to credit, so a lot of people are surprised at that.
I never knew that. I never knew that.
So they're business purpose loans, so they don't report to personal credit. And you can close in an LLC. You can also do layered LLCs with a lot of companies, where an LLC is owned by an LLC, and people just think that you can't do that, or they're just like, that sounds complicated, I don't even want to go down that road. I think the biggest thing with DSCR is there's a lot of exceptions made. So lenders guidelines, if you go to lender and say, what about this? A lot of times they make the exceptions. I feel like they make more exceptions because they're all privately held versus Fannie Freddie. And so just asking for the exceptions, putting the weird scenarios in there, and most of the time they work.
That's awesome. Okay. So you're obviously closing 20 plus loans a month. That's absolutely phenomenal. And I love the fact that you go over what's, your client that you're speaking to, what are your goals so I can help you reach them? I think that's absolutely phenomenal. And that definitely sets you apart, because most people probably sit back and go, oh, I can't do that, I can do this. You know what I mean? But if you get a overall concept of what they're doing, then you can help them even more. And he actually probably even give them some more ideas. So you got all this business going on, and I know you probably still do conventional FHA here and there, but 2026 is here. At the time of this recording, we're in 2026. We're in the beginning of it. How are you framing your 2026? What are your goals, or what's something you want to grow on?
So I've been very just reactive to people reaching out to me because I have a lot of business. And so my goals in 2026 are really just staying forefront of everybody, setting up these strategy calls on a regular basis, because people are ever changing in their business. I just talked to a couple this week, and their strategy last year was totally different. And so we need to step back. So really setting up strategy calls, staying in front, being a presence on social media. I didn't do that before. Getting my systems really, really dialed in. I have a CRM, just started using it to follow up with clients, implementing a lot of the automations, so I'm not doing it. I have multiple assistants, so really just dialing everything in so I'm efficient as possible on the back end with operations, and just delegating too, because you can't do everything. You can't scale by yourself. So that's something I learned in 2025 is just delegate as much as possible. So I'm spending my time, in front of agents, in front of investors on the front end, and just having my business kind of run itself with all my assistants on the back end, and just really dialing in every single SOP, what everybody's doing, taking the time in the first couple months just to really train, fill in all the spots, and then just leaning into AI, allowing AI to help me with, outbound calls, replies back, and just helping my business overall by leaning into that, because that's the future of where everything's going.
See, and I'm glad you brought up AI here real quick, because it's been obviously a hot topic here. You're like me, been in the business for over 20 years. AI was probably a little bit scary to you in the beginning, like it is most people who have been in this business a long time. But what has it done for your business? I know what you said you use it for, but like, what's one piece of advice you would give to everyone out there listening? Like, don't be afraid of it.
So Mia, which is a UWM's AI, came out, right? And so when it came out, I started calling all my clients. I have multiple clients, so it was calling people 20 times at once, and they went through the glitches, and I was kind of really like, I wanted it turned off right away. So these nothing's making sense. But what I realize is AI is a touch point, whether it's perfected or not perfected. It's my clients are calling me, hey, somebody called me, and so just whether the AI conversation goes good, bad, it's still a touch point to talk to your client. And so I think any way to stay in front, if you're not making the calls, AI is making the calls, your clients are still going to, they're going to call you and complain about it. They're going to call you because, oh, wow, that made me think of Holly. So I think just the AI touch points really, really have helped me, because a lot of my clients that got calls from AI with UWM reaching out, they called me and I did loans for them. And so one of the first ones I got was an $800,000 refi, came from an AI call. And I was really annoyed because the call didn't make any sense, but it made the client go, hey, let me reach out to Holly. Who's this AI person calling me? So I think it's just lean in, and even in the imperfections of the AI, it's still a touch point to your client, and also can really leverage your time. If AI can respond via, you're out and about and they can respond via a text or a call, and set something up for you, that's, you're not missing out on that client, and it's somebody's handling it for you. So I think just lean in, and as AI advances, just learn with it, grow with it, and take advantage of what it can do for you, even if it's not perfect.
It's funny you bring that up. I had my AI accidentally send out an email to someone that I knew was eligible for a refi, like, and I could help them out, but it something was sent out and it was like, your application is processed. It was a complete mistake, right? She literally called me yesterday and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my God, that was a mistake. I apologize. But like you said, it's still a touch point. After I talked to this individual for 30 minutes, I got a refi. You know what I mean? It was just like, cool, just anything. It's almost like saying there's no such thing as bad press. But I get where people come from in terms of, well, I want it to be perfect. We all do, right? But it's not going to be perfect. But at the same time, it's a touch point, and I think that's what people really have to understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you've been involved. Now we're going to switch gears here a little bit to talk a little bit about AIME. You've spoke at Fuse before. It's funny. We have for our VIP members, we have Ascent coming up, and really that's how you and I got on the phone, and we just started talking about AIME and Ascent and WMN, all great things going on. And one of the things you said is, like, I really want to dive into AIME a little bit more. I really want to kind of like get out there, show my name, share all that good stuff. And that's why we're on this podcast. What has AIME or WMN or anything that we've done, Fuse, what's like one thing that stands out to you that you're like, oh, I really, really like this?
I really like the community of people. So when I first was asked to speak at the WMN event at UWM Live, it's like I didn't know anybody. I didn't know a lot of people, in the broker world. I met tons of awesome women I'm still in contact with. So the relationships and just everybody's is willing to help everybody. So we all work at different companies. We all do different things, different businesses, but there's one thing that I've noticed that everybody at AIME just has one collective purpose. It's just help each other. Nobody is trying to gain anything. It's just, what can I learn from other people? What can I give to other people to help them? And so the women community is amazing. And then at Fuse, it was, another thing. I was able to get on stage, speak about my DSCR business, and just the people that I met from that, the people that saw me, just the people at the event, the community, there's just so much to offer. People giving back what the community has, the amazing speakers, events that AIME does. And I'm really hoping to lean in more, develop more relationships, and really get involved so I can really help other people, because I think my story is very unique, and I would love to, touch other people by just little things that I've done to help other people.
Yeah, no, it's the one thing I've always said about AIME, and if you've heard these podcasts before, you're probably like, Mark, it's a broken record, but my favorite thing about AIME is the community. You know what I mean? And then as we've gone on, yes, there's some people there that have probably left our community for different reasons, and that's fine. But the people that have stuck around in this community are some of the most selfless people that I've ever met. Like, if you just go on our Brokers Are Best Facebook group page, there's people sharing their marketing ideas, their Excel spreadsheets of how they keep track of things and how they calculate blended rates, and they do all this stuff. And that's what I love about it. And the fact that you have put yourself out there, I mean, I greatly appreciate that. What like looking forward to this year in AIME, like what's one thing within AIME that you're like, I really hope I can accomplish this with AIME? I know that's a tough question because you're still learning a lot about it, but
I think just get more involved so people know who I am, so I can really give back to everything that I've, gotten out of the community of people that I've met. So I think just getting more involved, attending more things, joining more, Zooms with different groups, the women group and other things, and maybe hopefully work myself up to I can get on the board and really affect people maybe in the future. And I really hope to go to Ascent because I think that would be an amazing trip just to really dive in, learn more about myself and grow myself so I can be, have a better 26.
yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to Ascent. I think it's going to break down a lot of walls for people and just literally make them the best version of themselves they can. Okay, Holly, I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. I know you're busy, and you really squeezed us in to do this podcast today, and I appreciate that. Bon Jovi, you're with them. What? Give us like, I'm sure there's stories you probably can't share, but share one of your crazy stories. This is fun here. Share one of your crazy stories that you're like, no way.
Well, let's see. I toured with multiple bands. Bon Jovi was my first and biggest one. Oh geez, so many stories. So many stories probably that shouldn't be shared online. To me, it was to see the production and what goes into a show is just crazy. I worked from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. Every day we had a show. Stories, gosh, people, the fans. Okay, that's where I'll start. I worked for his brother who did the fan club and the VIP. And so these ladies, mostly ladies, would follow him around to every single show. I'm talking every single show in a week, months, years, whether they're going to Canada, Europe, Mexico, wherever they're going. The same ladies. First of all, I don't know how they afforded it because those tickets are expensive. They'd be in the first couple rows. We would host like a party before, and they would do trivia, and these people would know more about John than I think he knows about himself. So that was one of the things that just surprised me. These fans have been following him since 1983 when he started. And you would see the same people, months go by, different cities, and the same fans. And then they all become friends. They're showing up at the hotels we're at. They know exactly where the bus is going to be. It was just absolutely crazy to me. The fan base that followed him around was something that I had no idea even existed until I did that show. So it was just cool really to see everything that goes into the production and how much people are behind the scenes. Some of the other bands, it's, just keeping some of the band members in line, they got video, they got to be on radio calls and you're trying to hunt them down, and you got people coming on the bus, you got girls knocking on the doors. It was just, some of it was like what happens, what happens in the movies with rock and roll bands. Some of it really happens. Other times, I toured with a band where one was a real estate agent. Everyone's in there working kind of on their own and they're just normal people. And other ones, it was definitely the typical, out all night partying, girls trying to come on the bus kind of thing. So a lot of different experiences and totally unlike the mortgage world. It was exciting. Every day there was something crazy going on. And here it's, we help clients and we sit behind a computer all day. So sometimes I miss those, but I do like the consistency of the mortgage business for sure.
That's awesome. No, I'm sure you have some stories you're like, yeah, I can't share that because I worked in the entertainment business, sports entertainment business for a long time. And yeah, there's stories that I can't share, but I know exactly where you're coming from. But Holly, no, I just want to say, thank you. Thank you for coming on today. I know you squeezed us in. I appreciate all the time, everything you do for AIME. I love the fact that you're putting yourself out there and, and I encourage people to put themselves out there as well. So thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, brokers, if you want to catch up on all of our past podcast episodes, as well as other AIME Network podcasts, please head over to aimgroup.com/broker to broker. You can also listen and watch all AIME Network podcast episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. If you're on YouTube, we're really pushing it this year. The handle's at AIME National for more great wholesale content. Everyone else, do me a favor, download the podcast, leave a review, rate it, all that good stuff. It helps spread the word and prove in the world that brokers are best. And Holly, you're one of them. And thanks for being with us again today.
Thank you.